Okay, so in place of, speaking on behalf of Mana, Leikoa Kael, and then speaking on behalf of Russell Stewart, is, well, while they settle on who's might be Russell's panihakaka, I'll just want to go over some ground rules. So just like the agenda says, we're seeking genuine questions of our panelists. So we have a 1-minute limit for the question. I'm going to come over with the microphone to where you are. And so if you could please wait till I come to you and then everyone can hear what you're saying. We had Aopohaku who was trying to ask a question in the middle of the presentation, I know, or toward the end of the presentation. So I'll let Ao, if she's here, is Aopohaku here? She went, okay, so, and then Kekane Pau had a question that he was about to ask, and he graciously decided to wait to this moment, so you're up first. So Kilinahe is going to still be timing it. Yeah, so these are our 1-minute questions. In other words, what we're trying to signal to everybody is, please, this is not the time for you to offer a mini speech. We're going to have time tomorrow. If you look at the agenda, we'll have ample time tomorrow. And I hope you guys have enjoyed having a lot of time to talk with each other in the breaks. So Kilinahe is going to be timing the questions at 1 minute per question to allow a lot of us to be able to ask the questions. We have an astute panel here. Let's hear what they have to say.
Yeah, hello. Thank you guys. Great day today. Based on this sensitive issue, I came here believing to come and get a better understanding with all the other leaders that have been pursuing sovereignty for the last 20 years of what they can provide to we as being part of this audience. And for me, being here, I kind of didn't really find the opportunity to really understand what they have done in the last 20 years to provide a process. So my question to the panel is, do you have a process in place that we can all go to today and not wait for another 20 years to make things happen, totally independent and not controlled by the United States? And if it's OHA, it's still controlled by the United States.
If any of the panelists would like to address that, that'd be great. And if you don't feel like you are prepared or inclined to answer, there's no need to. So, Harvey, let's choose.
Let me explain the process we have developed. 1999, as I said before, we had an election of delegates. The delegates came from all the different places of Hawaii, as well as America. I represent Lualualei Valley out in the Waianae area. There were 89 delegates, I believe, who were elected to enter, how much? 79, thank you, Bumpy. And Bumpy was one of the delegates. I was, a number of other people had been elected. Some died, some still around. And what we did was we have been meeting, and then we came to the position that we will submit to the Hawaiian people 2 models. One is a model for integration, very similar to the Akaka bill. The other is a model for independence, absolute independence. We're going to present those models to the Hawaiian constituency. Let them decide. I just got an email from a guy who represents America. His name is Radar Smith. He said, when I joined the organization, when I was elected, I support integration. He said, then I started realizing it's not for me to decide for the Hawaiian people, but to give them the choice. One was the integration, the other one was independence. And so that is where we're almost at. But because, or when we were just about ready to file our report and then put it out to the Hawaiian people, and that is when, as I said before, the funding was pulled. What I am proposing is, let us complete our commitment that we made to put the models out to the Hawaiian people and then give them the vote rather than anyone else dictating it has to be one direction or another direction. Also suggesting that when we give them a vote, Let them vote for integration. They can vote for independence. They can vote for neither one, or they can vote for both. So that is a process that I am suggesting we need to move in. Finish the Native Hawaiian Convention, then allow the people to vote. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to address that question?
Yes. I handed out that there's a single page sheet that pretty much gives the chronology of after the law passed 1993 and Francis Boyle in December of 1993 as well made his opinion or gave his opinion, his legal opinion on the international law. We declared the proclamation, well, we proclaimed the restoration of our independent Hawaii, January 16, 1994. And we immediately went into a constitutional convention. So from 94, I think till October, they were like described by other groups this morning. We had to really work. We had, again, funded by our own selves, basically working off donations and all that kind. What led us in the proclamation or the restoration of our independence was the Kupuna councils. That was like discussed through that whole year and was set in place that, you know, they were the basically the supreme body of authority. And again, you know, I remind you that in 1993, when this took place, the apology law took place, there was not as much information out on the Hawaiian Kingdom. After that law passed, eventually, I believe Kaui is here too, but Kaui Keanu Rem, through their newspaper, is how we started to pick up and learn more about it. So what we had to run on was the expertise of international lawyer Francis Boyle to guide us, to help us through and build this constitution that, you know, that created. And Kupunas was really definitely involved in every word of each line. And, you know, some of the things that I never thought that they would understand. But we had Francis there, we had Patrick Sickles, who was his top student that graduated, and that came in and actually helped guide the process. And, you know, in chapter 1, we talk about rights and equal protection, Declaration of Fundamental Rights, going into Article 2, enumerated rights. And what comes after that, Article 3, we talked about equal protection. By the way, you can find this on bumpikanahele.com, Constitution, the layout. But just going further on our Constitution, we looked at reserve rights and powers, structure, business of the nation, talked about the Legislative General Assembly of the Nation of Hawaii, legislative powers and limitations, and then into the Citizens Assembly, which would include non-Hawaiians, with a composition, 14 off each island, and so forth, terms of office, qualification, powers and duties. Then on Chapter 7, Nakupuna Council was created, and we had 7 reps from each island. Then the executive powers, the executive administration. We have the head of state, responsibilities of the head of state. Article 9 talks about the executive ministries. 10, the national tribunals, because we got to deal with enforcement as well. You all know the branches of government: enforcement, lawmakers, and executive branch. Then Chapter 11, Elections, Administration of the Nations. There is hereby established a general election process, voting qualifications. Every national or citizen of the nation of Hawaii who has attained the age of 16 has been a resident of the archipelago. And anyway, then we go into Article 12, Administrative Laws, Article 13, Home Rule, Article 14, Amendments, Article 15, Citizenship, Article 16, laws pertaining to lands and cultural preservation, and finally, Article 17, transitional provisions. And so for corporate entities, this is just something that we put in there because we knew that we had to be in some kind of transitional because of the damage. The damage is extra large. I mean, we talk about what we want, but we cannot have them tomorrow. It ain't going to happen that fast. A lot of stuff that we got to take care of. So, corporate entities, upon the ratification of the Constitution, any illegal entity, corporate or otherwise, shall not be immediately dissolved. Nation of Hawaii shall provide sufficient notice to these entities and the responsible officers, agents, owners, and or otherwise. Time shall be granted to allow these entities to state their claims and desire to function under the nation of Hawaii. Accountability, a requirement for treaty, no limitations for remedies, government transition, and repeal of inconsistent legislation. So, you know, and then this was basically signed by the heads of the kupuna councils throughout the islands, representation from different islands. So process, that was our process. And I put it on hold. At the time, I had no choice. The feds would pick me up. I got to lock up after that.
So, okay, I got an answer too. So, on Molokai, we have a process that is ongoing right now, and it's called the Ahumokus process. And we've been able now to be able, the state is recognizing the process, and it includes us managing our own shorelines. So not only under the leadership of NACPOPO, they've come up with all of the rules and regulations. It takes many, many years, and you have to go and talk to all of the different families. It's a ground up process. And we have to deal with our harbors on Molokai. DLNR brought in from the highest level, federal level security guys with guns, the National Guard with guns, the police department, the sheriff department, the county police. Everybody showed up at our wharf in order to stop, because we stopped the boats from coming into our harbor. And all of the resolutions for all of these issues came from the AHA. So we believe in Molokai that a ground up process is the best governance process, and we're doing it on Molokai. So any island can do it because it's a statewide effort if any island wants to do it, and I'm sure other islands are doing it. So that's another one that we can do right away. And like I said earlier, it's a traditional process that goes beyond prior to contact.
Just to add from my perspective in regards to process, we've got to be clear, there's not, process isn't just one element. You have the mechanics, which is actually, if you think of process, if we're talking about a voting process, for example, I have been impressed, and I have no problems with mechanics of process, especially that's been performed by organizations and nations like the reinstated Nation of Hawaii. The process is already set in regards to law, so I don't think that's the pilikia. To me, that's not the pilikia. The pilikia is having an educated and informed populace. That's process to me, which is more important. And one of the things I always say to my fellow Kanaka is, I'm more for independent Hawaiians than Hawaiian independence. Because we could be giving, a passport right now, an independent country right now. But if our minds and hearts continue to still be sickened by racism, sticking by denigration or not having an understanding of your own history, you end up performing tasks or doing things, in fact, that are more harmful for our people. So for me, the biggest aspect really is raising, when you're talking raising the nation, is raising the consciousness of the people. That's the process to me that's most key. Because it doesn't matter at the end how you vote or having the right to vote. It's having an educated vote. So with that, I also like to say, that's why time-wise to me is a very important critical element. Not just time, but opportunity for all people to, I mean, this is what it's about right here. You know, I wish more and more people could participate in these kind of discussions. We don't have, you know what's sad? We don't have critical debate out there in front of our own people. We don't have the opportunity where people sit and talk and that people can listen to hear the truth or to hear the bullshit so they can evaluate for themselves. The other thing was to process, you know, just to kind of share a little bit my philosophy is, one of the things I always say also is that I come to this with the understanding, as I say, only get one canoe. Only get one va'a. But what I hear from many people as if somehow I get one canoe race going on. That this canoe more faster canoe, this canoe is bigger, this one get better sails, he get a better navigator. But coming with that kind of mentality, it produces somehow a competitive nature, somehow I'm right, you wrong. But if we come into a process with the understanding that we only on this one canoe, and we better figure out very quickly on this canoe how we gonna move this canoe, what's the destination for this canoe. Because if we don't, this canoe will sink and we going down. So for me, process-wise, you know, if we start with that understanding, no matter what, we united in this effort. No matter what, we heading in the same destination, which is the betterment of our people, you know, feed and house the people. I don't think we're going to be off track. So, with that is understanding, if we do not unify, we dead as a people. All you gotta do is look at history around the world. And I always say this also, show me any place in the world where they put some names on paper and they had one nation. It's never worked that way. The names of a paper have been used against the people. Because that's not nation building. Nation building is we first understand we're on this canoe. And then understand we gotta go figure out how we're gonna paddle, we're gonna catch the wind. I'm watching you paddle over there, I'm gonna start synchronizing in your paddle. Because if we just sit there and watch and just splash water, the canoe ain't going nowhere. So the first thing I want all of us here to kind of understand is process. No matter what the process is, only get one. And the one has to be debated. The one has to be brought forward. Cannot be like multiple choice question, I'm going to just choose one. Has to be one that you put it all on the table. And you talk and you share and you debate well, which one actually works best for us. So for me, process right starts here. Yeah, not just about just checking off some box on a piece of paper.
So we have a question from Michael Tara, and he asks, in his perspective as a non-Kanaka Maoli, how do each of you interpret verses 3 and 4 of Kaulana Napua regarding Kana'i Olawalu? A'olea e kau I ka pulima, maluno ka pepo ka enemi, ho'ohui ai nā ku ai hewa, I ka pono sivila o ke kanaka. No one will affix a signature to the paper of the enemy with its sin of annexation and sale of native civil rights. A'ole mākou a e mina I ka pu'ukala o ke au puni, o lava mākou I ka pōhaku, I ka ai ka maha'o o ka aina. We do not value the government's sums of money. We are satisfied with the stones, astonishing food of the land. Read it.
Thank you. The first civic club was the Hawaiian Civic Club of Honolulu in 1918. And then the association, which again is the umbrella of the civic club, is in 1959. Sure. Thank you, Chair. Let me state again, just to remind everyone, our process is representation from the membership. And so one delegate represents 10 of our members in the club. So the clubs are entitled to 2 delegates. Larger clubs will have more because of their numbers, but each club will have a representative at our national convention in order to debate questions in the form of resolutions or bills for an act that comes up. So to answer your question, as far as the association is on record, the majority voice does and did support the Akaka bill. I believe in the earlier versions. The later versions, I don't believe we really had full discussion. As far as the Native Hawaiian the Roll Commission, again, we are on record of supporting the Roll Commission and supporting that effort. And there are other Civic Club members here as well, and I think, yes, there's the mic. Yes, we did, yeah.
I wanted to respond to your question, also, Kako, but, you know, of course, that song referred to the members of the Royal Hawaiian Band who refused to sign the Constitution of the Republic and participate in their process, because our ancestors all believed it was an illegal process. So I think you're trying to perhaps ask us, you know, is this process and putting our names on a roll, is it similar or is it different? What makes it different? Because at a later time, in 1900, our kupuna also participated in another process of voting in an American election, and they formed the Homerula Kuoko'a in order to participate in that process. And then others still ran as Democrats and Republicans as well. But in 1900, our kupuna decided to participate in that election, and they had to register in order to participate. And again, it was because it was U.S. law, women were not allowed to register until the 19th Amendment. And there are many processes toward independence where you need to enroll, maybe enroll is not the right word, probably register to vote. So when the United Nations conducted its plebiscite for East Timor to choose, did they want to be independent of Indonesia, which is one of the most recent votes that I can recall taken in the Pacific under United Nations guidance. People had to register to vote, to participate in that process of voting for their choice to be, and as it turned out, the choice was to be independent of Indonesia. And then in Kanaki, in New Caledonia, or Kanaki, the UN also sponsored a process for the people to vote to be independent of France. And again, the vote came out to be independent of France, but people registered to vote in that process. So I think this is a similar thing. We have to define who are members of the nation. It's not saying that you support this position or that position. Come in as a different party, form a party to participate in the convention. Let's form parties. One party to, be independents, one party, and vote on a platform. Give our people a choice as to who they want to vote to go in a convention if they want to have different points of view. Unfortunately, we're all so tied up and bound by the American system. There's only a two-party system. But our kupuna went around that system, and they formed a third party. And in most of the British Commonwealth countries and most European countries, they don't have only two parties. They have a parliament where people form different parties, and then when the vote comes out and 20% voted for this party and 30% voted for that party, they don't it's not winner take all. The parliament is comprised of 20% of that party and 30% of that party, because there's a recognition that we are not all of one mind. Unity doesn't mean we have to all be of one mind. We do have to be of one heart. We have to be of one na'au. But we need to have a richness of point of views, because we are not all the same. You know, people on Molokai are not the same as people here on Oahu. So we need to have that diversity represented in a convention, but we need to vote, because how are we going to keep the Ken Conklins of the world out of such a convention if we don't have a registration process to identify who we are as Hawaiians? Mahalo.
Again, point of information about that vote in East Timor. Be clear now, it was not the Indonesian government that put that vote forward. It was the United Nations. It was an open process. I mean, be very clear. It wasn't the Secondly, prior to the vote, the Indonesian military had to pull themselves out of the country before the vote happened. So let's be fair about the comparison. So if we're really talking about real vote here, United Nations, the US military would be out first, and we would have a real open process for our people.
And if I may, and that's a good point to make, because the original question was about independence, and that would be the process that when we get to the point of the United Nations sponsoring a vote of self-determination. And there would be many choices on that ballot, because our main criticism of the plebiscite in 1959 is that there was only one choice. So we would all have to expect that there would be more than one choice as well on that ballot. And yes, it would have to be free of occupation, because that was another criticism of the 59 plebiscite as well. But we're not talking in the Kanai'olavalu, it's not, at this point, the question hasn't been decided if it's so thank you.
Aloha.
Pokawa?
May I respond to your question? I thought it was an important question as we look back at our history and to try to bring it forward as its applicability today. Rather than that particular song, Mele Aipohaku, I would also suggest that we look at another song, Kana'i Aupuni, in which at the time Paia Kamehameha was passing away, a chief held him and asked him, "O my king, is there anything that you wish to leave back to us?" Words. And he said, "E naivali no oko, iku upono aole pau." Be undeterred, the good things, the pono that I have sought has not ended. A lot of people talk about what constitution do you follow? There is only one constitution as far as I'm concerned. That constitution was Paia Kamehameha's constitution of Pono. As the years rolled by, we started writing a constitution down, but it was still supposed to contain the value of Pono. Every action that we do must contain that constitutional value of Pono. And so I would measure all of these steps against that basic standard. Is it Pono or is it not? So all of the issues that we heard about in this particular case of listing or not listing and the rest, that is essentially the standard that we should always measure our future in building either the Hawaiian nation, and sometimes we confuse, we talk about building only the Hawaiian government, the Aupuni, rather than the nation, which is going to be another subject that we need to talk about, but we need to make that very clear distinction. If it is Ho'ulu Kalahui, if it is building the nation, then the nation itself has many different factors, one of which is the government. What about the culture? What about the environment? What about the social structures? What about the health structures? All of this is part of the nation. What we seem to be guided by at this point is only Keaupuni, the governmental structure. But let us keep in mind that if we are to be one Lahui, we have to recognize that there's enough space in this nation for our views on building all of these things. I think that is Pono. That is part of the Kamehameha Constitution. Thank you very much.
Hey, Hal, could I just add to the question that the chair asked? Again, the association is on record of supporting the effort of the Hawaiian Road Commission, but in our last convention, there was a resolution that was debated. It did not pass, but I think it's an important resolution. I just want to make sure you hear. And the title was Support the Creation of a Registry of Descendants of Hawaii Kingdom Nationals who signed the Kue Petition of 1897. Protesting the annexation of Hawaii to the United States. Part of the verbiage of that resolution is this, and again, I just wanted to have you hear this, that this was part of our discussion, and that is that the whereas with the Kue petition as a basis for generating a list providing genealogical connections to at least one of those kupuna who signed the petition would be all that is required for membership in the registry at the present time, regardless of where a descendant resides. So again, this was a discussion in our membership, did not pass, but it was a very vigorous discussion, similar to what we've already heard today. Mahalo.
We have a question here from Demont Connor.
Hello, my name is Demont Connor, and I'd like to ask you guys a question. I've been hearing a lot about the processes and educating our people, but like the last time I was here, my kuleana is to talk about what you folks have planned for our brothers and sisters as they lock up. How, you know, you guys, I was talking to one of the aunties earlier during lunch, and she told me that they went inside and enrolled some brothers and sisters in Kamau Valley. But my question is what do you folks plan to do to educate our brothers and sisters inside to this process that you're talking about, and what plan do you have that helps to integrate them back into our community? You know, we've been under the United States system for so long and it doesn't work. We're getting more brothers and sisters locked up. So I'm asking you, what plan do you have to facilitate us guys who stay locked up?
Well, I guess I'll stuck with this one, eh? I'll speak to that because I've worked vigorously for Pa'ahau advocacy, traveling to places like Mississippi, Arizona on our own dime. And I don't know, you know, it's a tough question. I don't say that I or anybody has a plan right now. But I think your question is very important because I think that we need a plan to figure out how we're going to deal with this huge disparity of Native Hawaiian incarceration. And so we know that there are more Hawaiians in the prison system than any other ethnic group. Some of the numbers, the conservative numbers in the stat books, I think is like roughly around 45%. But when we talk to people who work in the system, in particular drug rehab, my father-in-law runs one of the cash box. He said all of his clients is like maybe 80% Hawaiian. So we got a real problem going on. And it's a good question, but I don't have a plan. But I stand with you in that we need to push to remember all of our Pa'ahau who are locked off in faraway places like Arizona and Colorado and stuff. And I guess for me the question is what has come out of the study, the OHA study, on the disparity of Hawaiian incarceration. What has come out of that in terms of tangible outcomes? And very recently, I organized a book drive at UH Manoa where we gathered about 1,000 books to create a Hawaiian library to send off to not only Arizona, but every prison on Oahu as well. We got the books in there because I work with the particular group that's interested, practitioners, freedom of religion, Hawaiians who are suing the state of Hawaii for freedom of religion. So we're trying to support that, and what that connects to is what goes back to what I think everyone's talking about here, and in particular Kalekoa, which is identity and consciousness, yeah, and So I represent MANA, Movement for Aloha Noka Aina, and that's our process. Raising consciousness towards a national identity. Yeah, and to address what Michael had asked about Kaulana Napua, it ties into that as well. What does that mean to us? That means to us that we got to maka'ala, we got to listen to what our kupuna reminded us and the legacy they left us, that we are not Americans and we shouldn't be striving to be Americans, I don't think. And that we need to really be conscious of our history and our connection to the very land that we stand upon and the land that we know that we come from. So all of this is related in a sense to pa'ahau, that I think in terms of consciousness raising, in terms of liberation, liberating the mind, liberating ourselves, from all these issues, and of course from the occupation. But we cannot begin to even, and I can speak from experience, to make a difference for Pa'ahau without resources. Cannot, because I tried. I saw Smoked Meat Plate Munch and I funded myself to go Mississippi. Me and my friend Kapono Souza in Mississippi on our own dollar buying food for one ceremony with EBT card. No can. So we need resources to do that kind of work.
Comments. Depends on why you got put into jail. So there's all different levels of why you get put into jail. So in Molokai, we have like 3 valleys, and each of these valleys you can drink the water in the streams. You got like 4 million gallons of water, and you go from one side of the mountain to the other side of the mountain. It's all terraced out, all intact, producing nothing. 3 valleys on the island of Molokai. We got like 60 fish ponds, all still there, all in different bus up, some good, some bus up. So the Hawaiians had a different way of dealing with people who break the law. So if we use some of the Hawaiian values and our need today to produce food, we could come up with really good plans on what to do with certain prisoners instead of just locking them all up and not having enough room and making it private and all those kinds of stuff. We can be using our resources to produce food for ourselves, for food security in Hawaii. And we got the kinds of thing I'm talking about is on all of the islands.
I hate to take so much time, but if I can be very short, I think you got to make a distinction between a Po'i Hawaii who did the crime, got to pull the time, as opposed to a Po'i Hawaii who does a crime because of his Hawaiian sovereignty. That distinction is very important, okay? If I'm just running a social program, then okay, we're going to help the Po'i Hawaii look at their conditions, look at the economy, et cetera, et cetera. If we are representing Hawaiians because they are Hawaiians, I make the first distinction before I move for the arrest and before we start the movement. What is the difference between a criminal and an outlaw? A criminal is one who accepts the law as his code of conduct. And if he get nailed for violating it, he go to jail, he's a criminal. An outlaw says, hey, I don't give a damn where the laws or what the law says. I have my values, and I will be consistent with my values, whether or not it falls inside the law or outside the law. The test now is, how do we convert the criminal mind to become outlaws, to be true to your values, even though you may have to pull the time? Once we have moved to that step, now we're talking about the sovereignty movement. Now we're talking about the nation-building movement rather than just escaping the law or trying to minimize your sentence. So for my efforts, that is what I look at whenever I get involved and whenever I or anyone else get arrested or we face a test of going to jail. And I think that's very fundamental. At times, when those who are already in jail, it's not too late. They themselves can be educated about that history. I've represented a number of people. And after explaining to them what are the conditions that we find so many of our people in jail, we have to go back to the history and understand about the illegality of the overthrow, the system that has been judging them, and then build from that the Hawaiian citizen, the Hawaiian nation. If they don't reach that point, then that's not my kuleana. They may be poe Hawaii, but if they continue to be members of the American nation, somebody else got to take care of that. That's not mine. That's at least that's my point of view. Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up and share one experience I had when, on my way from a constitutional convention from Maui. I was on my way to Kauai, and when we landed in Honolulu for a change, plane stopped on the runway, and I got picked up right from the plane there. It was marshals and FBI. Picked me up on the car. From there, went straight to Halava, high security. And so my experience, what you talking about, brother? When I went there, I was on hero inside prison. And when I was there, you know how we educated. I was using my phone calls, forget people outside for send us information. So because the apology law was skinny, only had, hand pamphlet. My attorneys, my family was sending them in to me, and I was giving them out to people inside there. That is one of the ways we can educate. That was in 1995 when I got picked up. Doing the education in there, even though this stuff was happening, because I believe so much. Mens rea, the attorneys call mens rea, that's what you believe in. So that's the only thing I could do was just get my family for send me in packets. My packets were simple, the apology law, genocide act. In some cases, the attorney had to bring the St. Thomas Law Review, was too thick because you only can get so much pala in there. But that is on beginning, bro, that's on start. If we all get family in prison, that's what you can do for the Hawaiians. They don't want nothing for losing there. Let them sign up. They can be something or part of something, because I believe that's what makes this process ours. The fact that you and convict signing up for an election, that's against federal law. That's against U.S. or state law. So what does that mean? I think we got a slim chance inside there for, like I said, control our own destiny with that. Because if, I tell you what, they don't can vote in regular election. So I'm saying that was my experience. I was inside there asking for information come in. I never wait around. Gonna get lazy easy, either. And I agree with Poka. Remember now, get some hardened criminals inside there, the real deal. We got to look at that, and I'm all for that kind, rehabilitation, all that. Oh yeah, bro.
Just
Mahalo.
Things
Mahalo.
included in my book.
If I can, please, I'm hoping that we can get to a number of other questions. I'm doing a time check. It's 4:10, and respecting people's times, some folks have planes to catch, and staff have families that are picking them up, kids that need to be picked up from Kula. So I do want to be able to close up at 4:30. Therefore, with the remaining questions, I'm asking that the people who are asking, if you can direct the question to one member of the panel, and if all of us can be mindful of the time frames. 1 minute for a question, 5 minutes for an answer.
Yeah, I can answer that question very briefly. It's really, for me, I kind of find it, I don't make the distinction, outlaw, criminal. I think as Hawaiians, we criminalized in the system already, first of all. I work with many of our people who came out of the Pahau. As an educator, I work with many of them, and they become some of my best students, the most dedicated Hawaiian family students. So to me, I don't see it as a simple question of the in or out, the in, period. Secondly, as Kwame Turi had reminded us, you can never analyze the conditions of the oppressed without including the role of the oppressor and the effects of oppression upon the oppressed. Because if you fail to do that, you start blaming the oppressed for their own conditions, you see. Because oppression is really the cause of, I'm not saying all of those people who perhaps are locked up, but many of the conditions which led, whether it's because of anger problems, being miseducated, being abused, which created the conditions for Hawaiians being criminalized. And so for me, I think we got to be clear about that. We got to be clear about, there's a reason why we have a high population of Hawaiians incriminated in the system. Because the system looks at Hawaiians as criminals, first of all. So.
Alrighty, okay. A couple weeks ago, I loved the question that was posed by Bumpy at the end of our session. I'm hoping that Mr. Pokalainui will be able to answer it concerning the 1993, all those makanas. What happened to the multi-millions and the land that came during that apology back in 1993 by President Clinton? You made mention of it 2 weeks ago.
It was Pu'a Foundation. Pu'a Foundation was the one.
Are we talking about the Pu'a Foundation? Yeah, first of all, it wasn't from the government. The monies was from the church. It was the descendants of the American Board of Commissioners of Foreign Mission. Out of that, they formed the organization known as the Pu'a Foundation. And it wasn't millions of dollars. I forget what the amount was. But it was meant to create a foundation in which organizations could apply for the monies to carry on part of the nation building efforts. Now, more recently, I understand that the organization itself is now engaged in working in prisons and in working in different things. I'm not a part of the organization, although I was at the very beginning asked to consult with the organization. So I cannot give you an answer as to what they are doing now. So that's about the clearest I can give you. Okay.
Next question. Next question is from Leona Kalima.
I'll hit on that first. What Brother saying. That organization was created, I think a lot of the organizations got together, met at the church down by Nu'uanu, and formed this Pu'a Foundation. From there, because needed one receptacle, like how we like the U.S. give us stuff back, needed one receptacle to place the stuff that the United Church of Christ admitted to. So with that came money. I believe it was $1 million, $2 million plus, and land. One is on Craigside Street, yeah. That's Pu'a Foundation, the headquarters.
Seaside, Manoa.
Side. Okay, whatever, some side. So the whole point is that they should be held just as accountable, in fact, even more so than what OHA is doing with this process, because they've been invisible. They've been helping more church organizations, more that kind of organizations than the frontline movement. That was created because of the law. Apology law made them come forward and throw that down on the table. So get plenty of people to be held accountable just for this 1993 apology law, and Pu'a is one of them. Gotta go over there, go get money too, because that money was supposed to be for education on what was going on in nation. Yeah, all about sovereignty, that one. But it came controlled by the churches, the members on that board, churches benefiting from that. Fine, but remember how that came about? So, okay.
And I believe the land is under those churches too. But Michael asked me at lunchtime about asking a question, and I told him to write it down. But he said he couldn't ask because he's not Hawaiian. Now there is something we have to grapple with too. We have people who support us, but they're not Hawaiian. Okay? And Brada, I don't know if you get to go back into prison, but I think you got to take some of that kuleana upon yourself to take this information to prison. But I haven't heard of any process yet. I gave Henry a copy of the Kue petition because that was spoken about at our last meeting, that people will sign on to with their kupuna. And thank you, Lynette. Lynette gave me her copy. We made a copy. But I don't know if that's going to hold, because when they came to Waimanalo, the question was never answered. When I offered that, as far as I have a copy, I'll make a copy, how does that stand? So that question hasn't been answered either. Is there another process instead of Kana'i Oluwalu? So I think I may not come back tomorrow because I have Kupuna funeral to go to tomorrow. You know, so to come back, I want to go back. I want to have my day finished with some tangible answers, results, processes, because otherwise, I don't think I'll be here tomorrow.
Let me take the mic at this time to make a correction. The Pu'a Foundation is not controlled by the churches. My wife, Puanani, is a Buddhist minister. She's not a Christian. Punani Nihipali was one of the early members of this 5-member trusteeship. Of course you have Christians on it, but I just want to disabuse the group that it is controlled by or it is made up of churches. Yeah, you have some Christians on it as well. And they accept grants and decide how to distribute it. As to your other remarks, I'm not going to respond to.
I recognize that particular question wasn't posed to a single panelist, and I think there's, I think Henry wanted to answer, and then any others? The next.
I guess this is the opportunity to share with everybody, what the process that the reinstated government has actually established. And we're talking about since 1999, we conducted 4 separate elections. Well organized, the county government provided all the booths. Okay, we located ourselves in all the districts in accordance to our elections districting. Okay, we had 5 people manning those booths. All right, everyone was registered to vote, and the purpose for registry is very simple. You cannot get one ballot unless you identify yourself. Okay, and in this situation, because we reinstated the form of government of Hawaii, non-Kanakas could participate if they naturalized themselves to the government. All right, all Kanakas had a right to participate. Okay, and we spent, we're talking 6 months, recontacting all those who signed up to inform them of the date of the election and to inform them about the time limit that they had to actually put in your application to run for the office. So the offices that were available, was the offices of the House of Nobles, 24 seats, and the House of Representatives, 24 seats. All right, so each island was designated its separate allotment according to what we had in the kingdom law. Kauai, Niihau had 3 seats, Oahu had 8 seats, Maui had 6, and Big Island had 7. So 24 altogether. So 7 nobles came from Big Island, 8 nobles came from Oahu, and all the electors, you could vote for the nobles because they weren't connected to the districts. Okay? Now, only those who lived in the districts could vote for their representative. Okay? This is exactly what the state of Hawaii does. They use kingdom laws process. Okay? They vote their senates, which is the old House of Nobles. You know, and it's a very simple thing. Now, I'm recommending that we conduct this vote, in the year 1500 in September, okay, which gives us an allotted 16 months to educate the 100,000 that OHA claims that they have on their roll, and to educate the other 200,000 Kanakas across the world with educational material side by side sent out to every Kanaka Maoli so they can be informed as to what Kanai Olovalu or nation within a nation status is and what the result is if you vote for it. You can now vote for independence. What independence is, what is the result? This can all be put into educational material. And this is how we should educate our poe, Kanaka. Not sit here and keep wondering what we're going to do. We cannot dream up one process. Trust me, the federal government will dream your process already. Okay? They're dreaming that you accept it. Wake up, Kanaka. So, I'm sharing with you that every one of you sitting here, if you're serious about making a change of governance in Hawaii, run for office. Okay? Go run for a noble's office, go run for a district office, go run for the high office. Very simple. I don't agree to going to conventions where organizations, already set up, can vote in 10 of their people because they're involved with the process already. I don't agree with that. This is what I agreed with. That each and every one of us should have the right to say into the ballot and not be blinded or not be uneducated, and being force-fed something. So, as the reinstated Hawaiian government, I'm telling you, we've conducted these things. In fact, over the past few elections, we've even learned how to make sure that no voter fraud occurs. We actually, we set that up because when you come in to vote, we don't know computers. What do we need computers for? The guys at the box, right there at the district, had to count the votes in front of all of their members. All the guys participated. You had to show up if you wanted to find out who won in your district. They would have to count the votes. And from there, the votes would have to be taken to the main office that was set up on the island to be recounted. Okay? But when you received your ballot, you had a number on your ballot. So you could mark who you voted for on your receipt. In the event we was going to get one recall or one challenge, at least the individuals who voted can find out if whether or not the number that they was registering on the master ballot matched up to your number. And we found it out. We found it out when we conducted these elections. So, again, we bring to this table a process that's functioning today. Not in 1993, not in 1999. We're talking the year 2014. So this is what we bring to the table, okay? So that we can take the process, we can move it forward, and we can put out fair educational material to it. You guys want to put plebiscite questions onto the ballot? Happening. We can put it on the ballot. If you want these people to vote, whether or not there should be a nation within a nation or an independent, put it on the ballot.
you won't find out the answer. But without it, and just going blind into something, that's difficult. I agree with people who want to educate.
Who are in line to ask the
Mahalo.
questions, and we probably have only two. You know what I'm going to do? Because of the time, I'd like to ask them to ask the question so we can all hear the question. And we really don't have the time to hear the answers from each of you. But I think sometimes there's a lot of value in just hearing the question. And so I invite you folks to have the talk story answer outside. So the three people here are Wani, Wanita, and Limumi Khan at the other end of the room. And I believe there's and Kau'i. No. Okay, three. Mahalo.
I just want to make a quick comment about the prisons. I had a prison committee in 1970 that went into Oahu Prison. I had a prison committee at the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. However, I do not think that a person should claim sovereignty and be able to get away with murder. That's number one. Number two, I've got a question for you, not relating to non-Hawaiians, but Kanaka Maoli. If there are 200,000 Kanaka Maoli living here and 200,000 living on the mainland, and most of my family lives on the mainland, how can they vote on needs and problems that we have here at home when most of them are busting their okoles just to survive in Cucamonga, Iowa, San Francisco, or wherever they may be? Our family comes home, they visit Ohana, eat as much fish and poi as they can, and then boom, they're back on the mainland. They have no understanding of what it is to live here with the needs and problems of our people. So how can we give them a vote, a full vote? They gotta come home. We need them here. We have all these people moving to paradise. All these non-Kanakas moving to paradise. And our own people, we need to come home so they can fight for the Aina. So that, as far as I'm concerned, they shouldn't have a vote, maybe a half a vote if they live on the mainland. Tell them, come home where they belong. What is your position? At least a couple of you on that.
Okay, so we'll be hearing some lively discussion on that outside after.
My question is about what Walter said earlier. Need for more time to create education for independent nationhood for the Lahui. That was number one. And number two, rejection of Act 195. My question you all can answer right now by doing what we did in the room. Will the presenters become the organic consortium to achieve the two things Walter asked us all and the majority voted on? You just have to raise your hand. Please become the council we need to go forward for our Lahui, that we can start to get these things happening. If you guys raise your hand, yes, present us and we can create the action to get things moving. Right now, nothing, we're all talking like this to say, those were two things that we need to feel good about, and it's hard when OHA is calling the shot. The consortium is here and they say, you guys are the ones that can together and we can create the next step. Can you just raise your hand and say yes or no?
We have two more questions, and again, please, by all means, engage in a lively discussion afterwards.
Yeah, I really appreciate the question, but you know what? I think we should all vote. I mean, that's the reason why we're all here. I mean, I don't feel that I should be held only responsible when everybody showed up, okay? So, I don't think it's difficult to ask, okay, should we or should we not agree to present to the Office of Hawaiian Affairs that time's got to be extended? I mean, that's a simple question. And I think we should all call for the vote. If we get a majority, then that's what we should give to them. Now, the next question that you just asked, we don't need a consortium. Let's just do it, okay? So, why don't you ask everybody the question?
Just in terms of that time question, I think our trustees and our leadership have heard very loudly and clearly the call for more time, and it's a very consistent, a very ardent call, and it's been well heard. Here's a question from Limumi Khan.
Aloha and mahalo. You know, when I look around this room, many of us have been doing this work for over 40 years, maybe even 50 years. I remember when I first heard the word sovereignty, maybe it was in the 60s or 50s and all. You know, that was a very foreign term to me. But since then, I think I've grown. I've grown because I've allowed myself to be in your company. Having said that, here's my observation, my question. So we know that we've had lots of education in all these years. And in going out to do some of the sign-ups for Kanai'oluwalu, one of the problems was that our people were saying, what, another role? Let's get on. Let's get some action going. So there's a call for action. So Bumpy, Henry, Poka, Kalahui, you have all been involved with the process of putting together a convention, election of delegates, etc. So you know that process. Okay, so now I've lost it on my computer. I'll try to remember. So in the process, as I recall, it goes something like this. You have a roll or a registry of people. And then you have apportionment, possibly education, and in this case, education on the various forms of governance, so our people will be informed. I saw in one Kalahui plan, which I personally kind of liked, was to, in the education process, educate on all the forms of government, then have a referendum before a constitutional convention so that our people can decide which form of government they want. And then you have the apportionment, the election of delegates, and you have a constitutional convention that forms the constitution consistent with that form of government that was selected. And then you have it ratified, and then you have the election of leaders, and maybe the next step after that is you get the assets transferred from OHA to this new government. So my question, and I'm going to ask it of Walter. I wanted to ask it of all of you, but I think I'll ask it of Brother Walter there. And that is, having explained or identified those processes, is that something you can agree to with the understanding that in all of those steps, collectively we would talk about those steps and how we would hold a war with those steps? Is that something that you think we could all support?
I invite you folks to have that conversation in a little while. We have one last question to be heard by the group, and then we'll take some quick notes on what's going to be happening tomorrow, and then Chair Machado will offer some closing remarks for us, followed by Apule.
I have a question for the panel. Can you raise your hands if you're for the row or for state process? Any one of you? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Full independence, would you please raise your hand? Yeah. In the audience, can you raise your hand if you support the state legislation? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Those for full independent, please raise your hand. Well, doing the old-fashioned way. With all respect, I need to, in 1999, when was the time that you folks started that state process? In 99, you know?
The process started in about 93, 94. 99 was an election. 99 was the election, and then we started the meetings in 99 up to about 2003, 2004.
Well, if we can continue that conversation outside afterwards. Just some quick notes on tomorrow. So mahalo nui loa to the panelists. I think we will continue to see them as tremendous resources for our conversation tomorrow, both formal and informal. How about a round of applause for all of them for their tremendous contributions to our lahui. Tomorrow we're going to start with some just kind of organizing opening remarks, and then our first morning session is intended to really be a precursor to the main attraction, which is our afternoon long work session. So really, it's sort of a build-up, a drum roll to the main question of the day tomorrow, and I hope that you all consider it tonight. How can we all move forward together along the various pathways to rebuilding our nation? Related sub-questions, how can we focus on shared goals such as ho'olalahui and ho'ulu'aina? How can we ensure that we do not endanger or create barriers for other pathways? And how can the efforts along various pathways support one another? So in the morning, we'll have the groups broke up into two. All of the folks interested in pathways that involve state and federal recognition, maybe not exclusively, but as part of the picture, we'll be meeting outside in the Wokalani Hall, and then those who are interested in international recognition, independence, will be meeting in this room. And then in the afternoon, we'll have a full discussion about those questions that I just posed. So that's kind of the shape of tomorrow, and I hope that you will all be back for that. We're starting at 8 o'clock in the morning. We'll have breakfast again down the way. And if we can ask our chair of the Board of Trustees to come forward, Chair Machado.
All I want to really say is thank you for participating. And even if you think OHA is controlling, and because we have the resources, and many of you have responded by saying that we are leading this charge, and if you truly believe that, you ask yourself, could we have been able to host the group that has come or have agreed to participate? Have we not structured an opportunity to have open dialogue? Have we provided sufficient resources such as food and an area that everybody felt welcome? To me, that's called hospitality. When you come visit me in my house, that's what is expected of me in my home to do for those that are coming. You may not agree on how the political direction might be, but I've been very clear about how we offer the aloha for you folks being here. So when I saw Kaliko outside and I used the word mercy rule, and then I should have said, are you ready to rumble? So I just going in. What was that? I know, but Mawani, you flew from Hilo. So as the resident in the home, it is our kuleana to malama you as you come. Mawani, I'm trying to establish, I'm the elected trustee, okay? So this is our home, we are the residents here, so when we invite people, this is our responsibility. This is all I'm trying to establish. You're entitled to believe that this is your home too. A people's home, whatever, because when the nation is built, our assets gonna get transferred. There's no doubt about that. But let's not quarrel over something so chicken shit like this, Mawani. I'm just simply trying to establish this, that when we took in the kuleana to host, it was intended to prepare for you folks to come and to participate openly. That's all I'm trying to say. And I thank you all for coming, and make sure you come back.
Kaponis, mercy, mahalo. Mahalo for that. Mercy. Art Pule by Kaponi Kavika Burgess.
Ho malu kako ke akua mana loa he wahi ho mai ka I ke ia oe ke akua no ke ia ako ana mai ke ia alaka I o ka lahui hoi ki mo po I pai o no nā makahiki he nui no ka pono ka lahui no ka pono ke ia aina no ka pono nā keiki e hiki mai ana he wahi mahalo ke ia oe ke akua he wahi noi ke ia oe alaka I alako I nā home I nā ohana me ka maluhia me ka pono hoi hoi mai ka koa pau I ka lao popo pau I ke ia mau kuka no ka pono ka lahui nau no ke aku e alaka I mai yamako I ka ke kia ho'okahi I ke holo pono ka koa pau no ka pono no ka ea no ka pono ka lahui oe ole no ke ia leo pule iau